If the dungeons in The Legend of Zelda are the foundation upon which the games were built, then the bosses can be considered the crowning jewel. Boss encounters serve to stand in the way between you and your quest to save Hyrule, and defeating them with a new tool and gaining a heart container symbolizes your growth as a player and a milestone in your journey. The mark of a good boss battle is found in meticulously combining intimidating boss design with rewarding and fun gameplay mechanics. Today, we're going to be ranking those boss battles in the N64 era of the Zelda series from best to worst. To clarify, if it has a name introduction, it's considered a boss, so unfortunately, the stellar mini-bosses from the Zelda games will not be ranked here. As well, we'll largely be ranking them in context to how they stand today, and not back to their original release. Besides, that should be okay, right? Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask are timeless classics that age well, right? Let's find out. Number 1, we're kicking things off with Majora's Mask, the final boss. Usually you would consider that there would only be 17 bosses in the N64 era, but since the final boss of Majora's Mask is 3 bosses, one form after another, it's safe to say that they are all the same encounter. Majora's forms are really good because there is no single way to defeat any of them. All 3 forms, Majora's Mask, Majora's Incarnation, and Majora's Wrath, have some interesting and unique move animations, and the music that you hear when you fight against them shifts and changes, rearranging the ominous theme that you've been hearing constantly throughout the entire game. The mask form is the most simple phase, having a few moves and can summon the masks of the bosses to fight you. In my opinion, this is a really cool way to bookend the game, since you get to see the bosses that you've beaten throughout this game. The second form becomes this manic, human-like creature that dances all goofy-like around the stage, damaging you when you get too close. The third form, however, Majora's Wrath, is easily the most intense and one of the toughest bosses in the N64 area. It has attacks that can hit you or get past your guard through most distances. Overall, these are a really fun series of fights with various ways to tackle each phase, and the difficulty is determined by how unprepared or prepared you are. Of course, as most people know by now, collecting all 20 masks prior to entering the moon will open up the final side quest, which ultimately rewards you with the Fierce Deity's mask, which essentially trivializes the boss. It may seem a bit cheap, but it's a great prize for completionists, and it embodies the Zelda philosophy. The more you explore the world, the more you'll be prepared to face any and all challenges the game throws at you. Number 2 is Evil Beast Ganon, the final boss of Ocarina of Time. It's probably the most epic and atmospheric boss battle in the N64 era, and possibly the entire series. The music fits really well, and the sound design is excellent, whether it's the terrible hissing sound that it makes at you, or when it swings its swords. The dark clouds in the sky and the lightning effects make the boss look really intimidating, and whenever you get hit, hearing Zelda scream in the background really makes this feel like a final boss. Aside from that, the battle itself is very fun and open to several approaches. Mainly, your goal is to get past his attacks and strike his tail, but how you go about that is your business. Do you use Deku Nuts to stun him? Bombs? Light arrows? The game gives you a hand by supplying you with each of these things, and if you lead Ganon towards the pillars, he will destroy them for you. It's a very moody and grand in scale encounter, and deserves to be remembered as one of the best bosses in the Zelda franchise. Number 3, Phantom Ganon is the 4th boss of Ocarina of Time and easily one of the biggest challenges in the game. Aside from the awesome design of this Phantom, the first phase, where you wait for the purple warp portal in the painting, is a technical show-off moment from the developers and how they show you the Doppler effect. You can tell where the real Phantom is coming from if you hear the galloping of his horse more clearly when you're staring at the painting. It's a really cool effect, and I wish they used it more in other Zelda games. The second phase can be very challenging because of the high damage. The weird depth perception of the N64 game may be a bit tricky, but thankfully the Z targeting helps fix that. The tennis game with Phantom Ganon is more than anything else about watching the rhythm, adjusting your rhythm and adapting quickly. However, watching your sword deflect the energy ball in a wrong direction can really ramp up the tension, especially if you're low on health. The attacks do a lot of damage, and it's a very engaging fight overall. The challenge that this gives serves as a hint towards beating the actual Ganondorf later in the game. Number 4 is Dhola, a fantastic boss fight and the first boss of Majora's Mask for a handful of reasons. Aesthetically, he's a very unique and interesting boss, giving the savage jungle warrior look that we never see in Zelda. The warrior chanting is really cool, and it fits with the intense rhythm of the boss battle theme. Because of how early you encounter Dhola in the game, most players would usually only have 3 hearts and a handful of tools with them: the sword, the shield, the Deku Mask, the Deku Nuts, and the bow and arrow. As the player, you need to make the most out of your tools to stun this boss and deal damage with your sword, while avoiding his own sword attacks. Like all bosses in Majora's Mask, Dhola can be fought multiple times, being revived after you play the Song of Time and come back to the temple. It's really cool to see how much more easily you can beat the boss as you progress through the game, since there's no single-track way of beating a Dhola, and it reflects your progress as a player. I really wish more of the bosses in Majora's Mask were like that, but at least there's a precedent for it in future Zelda games. It's a very fun, fast-paced fight that's also surprisingly forgiving, because he can sometimes summon bugs that you can blow up with the bomb flowers, giving yourself a heal if you need it. Dhola, in my opinion, is easily the best first boss in any 3D Zelda game. Number 5, Baronade, the third boss of Ocarina of Time and the anemone virus that's been infecting Jabu Jabu. What makes Baronade such an awesome fight is that it rewards players for proper positioning, and punishes them for consistently making the same mistakes. Despite belonging in the early 3D era game, Baronade does an excellent job of showing the player how depth perception and tracking should work, with the spinning jellyfish being swung about everywhere. Baronade is encountered in a sweet spot in the game, in how it's placed. If Link had any more HP, then this boss could easily be muscled through, mashing the attack button without any thought to positioning or anything like that, and if Link had less, it would be too unforgiving for newer players. It's a very fast-paced battle that rewards perfect positioning, and it doesn't deny you the experience of being able to take your sword and swing it at a giant, intimidating boss enemy, which is an experience that, in my opinion, is lacking in the previous two bosses of Ocarina of Time. Alright, we've basically just cleared out the top 5. We're still in the good bosses right now, but it is getting to the point where we're leaving good bosses and entering into meh bosses, and then finally going into bad bosses. We're still quite a ways out, but just so you guys know, if you guys can't stand hearing people criticize N64 Zelda games, you might want to click away. Or stick around, find out why you don't want to like me as a person, because we're going to be tearing these guys a new one. We're still in the good bosses though, so hang in there. Number 6, Twin Mold, the two giant worms of the Stone Tower Temple. This is an awesome boss fight that takes place in the endless expanse of a desert. The gargantuan bosses are quite a sight to look at, and it's the only encounter where you can use the newly acquired Giant Mask. A good amount of strategy and positioning is required here, since you need to ration out how to use your magic jars to maintain your giant form, and mind your positioning to make sure you don't get hit by guys that come out of the sand. Conversely, you can also finish Cremia's side quest to get the Chateau Romani for infinite magic power, letting you just wail away at the worms with reckless abandon. Number 7, Evil King Ganondorf is in a bit of an interesting place. I put him all the way down here because, unlike Phantom Ganon, you don't have the ability to Z-target. That being said, you have the perfect angle to play magical tennis with the King of Evil. The game helps you with that one. But depending on how quickly you can adapt to the attacks, you can easily find yourself eating 3 hearts just like that, followed by evil last man to taunt you. It might be frustrating for some people, especially since you might have to resort to spamming spin attacks or crouch jabs just to win tennis, unlike the way that the game was intended to be played, but the music and the atmosphere of the encounter give it a very solid final boss feel, and it's definitely a standout among 3D Zelda bosses. Number 8, the Goat, the mechanical goat, ladies and gentlemen, from Majora's Mask. He's a bit of a mixed bag of a boss, one that you can easily love or hate depending on how you feel about rolling. The game already gave you enough time to practice rolling prior to the Snowhead Temple, and also some select sections from inside. And also, not to mention, you'll need all the practice you can get if you plan to enter the Goron races afterward. If you don't like the minigame, then you might detest this battle, but if you're like me and you love it, you're gonna have a great time. There's a bit of nuance to this battle. Instead of repeating the same rolling patterns and pathways over and over again, eating attacks no matter where you go, you need to adapt your approach carefully, or time your distancing so that you can always hit them from above after rolling off of a ramp, letting you get a lot of free hits in, and never getting hit by that lightning bolt that homes in on you. This is a battle that requires quite a bit of practice, spacing, and skill, and that's what makes it a favorite of mine. Number 9, Twin Rova, the classic Fire and Ice boss of the Zelda series. The boss fight isn't anything too special, it's just a matter of using your new mirror shield to reflect magic to the other twin sister. Do it enough times, and they'll fuse together to create a boss that is non-advertiser friendly, apparently. All in all, it's a solid send-off to one of the best dungeons in Ocarina of Time. The real draw of the boss is the personality of the two sisters, two bickering old witches that helped Ganondorf ascend to power as an evil sorcerer. and eventually the Twin Rova would become the main villains of the Oracle series, two of my personal favorite Zelda games. As a boss battle, however, they're just alright. Number 10, Volvagia, the incredibly popular dragon boss from the Fire Temple, and quite possibly the best dragon fight in 3D Zelda by default, which is actually kind of a shame. People like this boss because it's a dragon, and that's fine. It certainly has a great design, but when you consider that it spends most of its time flying around off-screen, you won't even get that experience. As well, any semblance of lethality is taken away once you realize you can just avoid the rain of boulders by hanging onto the edge of the stage. However, it is a lot of fun to let him chase you around, you get to see him when you do that, but all in all, this boss is just a glorified game of flaming whack-a-mole. Number 11, Goma. She gets sort of a free pass when it comes to the rankings. I mean, after all, she is the very first 3D Zelda boss ever, and she does need to serve as a tutorial for the game no matter what day and age you live in, if you're playing it for the first time. She's very easy, just wait for her eye to turn red, shoot it with a slingshot. It doesn't even take the 3 phases that we're used to seeing in the Zelda series, just keep targeting her while she's on the ceiling, wait for her eye to turn red again, then finish her off with your sword. Still, she is the first boss of the 3D games, so she does get a pardon for being so easy. Not to mention, you are rewarded with a really tragic cutscene that happens afterwards, so it might not be inherent to the boss, but you do need to beat her to see that. Number 12, Bongo Bongo. Alright, I'll say one nice thing about him. The lore surrounding him is really cool. He's the evil that Impa seals away into the well, only to escape and infect the Shadow Temple. The design of Bongo Bongo is really creepy and really awesome. But as a boss battle, he fits in this strange limbo where he can range from being either incredibly cheap or too easy, depending on what his hands feel like doing at the time. There will be times where his hands will be invincible, and there will be times where his hands will just let you shoot him. The game makes sure that the movement of Link is very difficult here, since you'll be constantly jumping up and down on the bongos, and you'll be wearing the hover boots to prevent yourself from being sent flying even further. The best you can do as a player is to hope that the Z targeting or L targeting tracking works in your favor, to let you hit the hands with your arrows, which, depending on your RNG, can be the easiest thing in the world, or your first step toward taking a huge beating. Number 13, Gyorg, the boss of the Great Bay Temple, and is a very frustrating fight, mainly for the wrong reasons. Positives out of the way first, you do kinda get that helpless victim in Jaws feeling when you're swimming in the water. Design-wise, it's very unique and very intimidating. The negatives, though? I mean, there's only one way to fight against Gyorg, unless you have the Fierce Deity Mask, in which case there's 2. More than anything, it feels like you're playing a battle of attrition. If you're too impatient to fight against him, he'll knock you into the water. If you try to do anything else, he'll knock you into the water. And once you are in the water, this guy swims like a jet ski. He will almost always catch you 9 times out of 10. He's gonna eat you, spit you back out, and you're gonna lose 3 hearts worth of damage. The problem with Gyorg is that it's not that he's difficult, really. It's just that the only way of beating him, hiding with the boomerangs at the ready until you can hit him, makes him almost harmless, and it's really boring. The method of diving down into the water, shocking him with the Zora shield once, it's just very bland. Again, difficulty doesn't make the boss automatically more fun. This shark is a frustrating challenge that's hardly any fun to play against, and it sucks because you have to beat him. Number 14. Difficulty does not equate fun, but a lack of difficulty make for an anticlimactic boss fight. So, here's King Dodongo, a boss that can get killed within the first minute of seeing it, even if it was your first time playing the game. Goma was given a pardon for being a tutorial boss. King Dodongo embodies the common criticisms of Zelda bosses, the overly simplistic combo of using your new item to expose a weak point, hitting him with a sword, letting them roll around harmlessly until the boss lets you do it again. I get that this is meant to be a throwback to the original Dodongo from Legend of Zelda 1, but when you consider that there was a lot of build-up to this boss, it was just, from a lore perspective, there was a lot of exposition about the Goron's plight, and all of that falls flat when you realize you can kill King Dodongo in 30 seconds without so much as taking a scratch. Even the design was very meh. It's just a bigger Dodongo. It makes big noises, and it's probably dead by the time I finish this sentence. Number 15, Morpha. Morpha was last, you guys saw this coming. For those of you guys that have seen my streams fighting against this thing, I said it was 3 things. It is non-challenging, it is unimaginative, and overall, it's a waste of time. The water temple itself was infamous for people getting lost, but I'm sure most of those people would have preferred staying lost instead of fighting this amoeba monster. In order to do any damage to it, you have to wait for the nucleus-looking thing to rise up to you so you can get a clear shot with your long shot. If you get caught, you have to spend the next 10 seconds watching Link helplessly get flung about for a good chunk of your health. It's just such an unimaginative boss that takes longer to beat than it should. At least with King Dodongo, it was over within the first 30 seconds you meet it, and you don't have to worry about it anymore. Like, Morpha doesn't look good. Morpha doesn't play good. Morpha is the kind of boss that would have made Ocarina of Time much better if it was just replaced with something else. It is the blight on Ocarina of Time more than anything else. Like, you could have just had Shadow Link be the final boss of the Water Temple, or you could have had an aquatic version of Dead Hand. Anything could have been better than this. And that about does it for the N64 boss rankings. What do you guys think? Did your favorite end up in the top 10? Feel free to sound off in the comments below to tell me what you guys think is the best boss in the Zelda series. Or, feel free to let me know in the comments why I'm wrong and why Morpha deserves to be number 1. Till next time, see you guys later.